Hey guys, this is Hybrid, and today I'll be reviewing Iron Man 3. Now, this movie is the third movie in the Iron Man franchise, but the fourth movie really in the whole Iron Man storyline to a degree, considering Avengers as well did play an important role with Iron Man in particular, and that really shows in this movie because a lot of it deals with the post traumatic stress or anxiety, I guess, attacks that Tony Stark receives from the events of Avengers. Because when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Like, this guy is a man of science. He's not used to the, aliens, gods. Like, that really challenges your, beliefs and what you really think, especially as a scientist and an inventor and all that stuff. What is possible? What are the boundaries of science? Is there anything else we could do? Like, so he's really, basically, I guess a proper word would be like razzled, or he's really shaken up by all this. So the movie really deals with that. And I took a few notes as well. Like, this was a really hard movie for me to review because I had to go back and really think about some things. And I feel like I have a good score for this film, and I think I have a good reasons for justifying it. So let me just go down my bullet list, supposedly, or so to speak, and yeah, just there's spoilers. Spoilers. It'll be in the title, but in case you guys don't read the title, because I know some people don't read the title and they comment on really, really odd, idiotic things, and I'm like, there's something called a title and a description box. You should try reading it sometimes. But whatever. Spoilers. I'm saying it now, so if you can't read, you can hopefully hear. And there you go. So the first thing I kind of noticed was the misleading category. Now let me just say this movie has a big motif of misleading and animicity, things like that. So I was under the assumption that this was a techno thriller. That's what I've seen it was going to be. It's not that at all. It's an action comedy film. And speaking of comedy, I felt this movie had way too much comedy. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because comedy is good, Give people a lighthearted mood, things like that. Give them a laugh. In this film, every serious moment was interrupted by comedic kind of insert in there. And I felt that was really unnecessary, and it kind of ruined parts of the movie at times because you'd be really getting into it. Like with Iron Man 1, it had comedic parts, but when it was serious, it stayed serious. And it really set a tone with that movie. That's one of the reasons why I consider Iron Man 1 my favorite, still after this one, my favorite Iron Man movie. Because you really got, the feel for how serious the situation is at certain times. While in this, it's just like, just laugh it off and move on. So I really didn't like how they kind of had way too much comedy, in my opinion at least. Note, this is my opinion. I'm not like the official, score. Also, something else I thought I'd point out. Tony Stark does so. He basically is like Sherlock Holmes with gadgets in this movie. And fun fact, if you didn't know, Sherlock Holmes is portrayed by Robert Downey Jr. as well. So there you go. But I kind of found it interesting because I was thinking while he was doing some detective stuff using holograms, and it was really cool. I was like, why isn't Batman doing this? Like in the Batman movies, like I hope they do incorporate that in the future ones because Tony Stark pretty much just put Bruce Wayne to shame with how much detective work he does in this movie. And I gotta admit, I was really impressed. And I also liked how they really showcase how much technology Tony Stark has. So I thought that was really interesting as well. Now the next thing is the villain twist. A lot of people are mixed on this. Me personally, a lot of people are comparing it to The Dark Knight Rises, which I did not like the twist for that. One reason in particular that once they did it, Talia didn't add anything at all. Like she didn't do anything else besides die essentially after she was revealed, which kind of bugged me. While in this one though, once they revealed the twist, which was actually a very comedic and enjoyable twist, I must say, but once they revealed the twist, the real villain, Aldrich Killian, actually did stuff still afterwards. Like he made himself a villain. He wasn't just a villain to be a villain. He wasn't just a guy pulling the strings. He was actually doing stuff. Like out there doing stuff, and he posed a real threat. So I really did appreciate the fact that they didn't just kind of throw in, oh, he's being, he's not real or something like that. He actually would. They made it like I don't know. All right, here I'm gonna try explaining it because I'm having a difficult way of saying how like why I feel the way I do. You do stuff that cause bad things to happen. Let's say people die from what you're doing. You don't want people going to you because if they go to you, they're going to blame you. Let's say you own a company, your company is going to get shut down, etc. So what Aldrich Killian did essentially was make a face for those bad things happening, which in turn was the Mandarin. And that's really genius, actually, when you think about it, because everyone's going to look for the Mandarin who's the Mandarin? How can we stop the Mandarin? When really it's Aldrich Killian. So even if they were to stop the Mandarin per se, it wouldn't harm Aldrich at all. So I thought that was really genius the way they did it. But at the same time, it is kind of sad we aren't going to see the Mandarin. At least maybe, because one thing I was thinking about was the Ten Rings in this film is very different from the Ten Rings in the first film. Like, I know Aldrich says, "Oh, I was there from the beginning. I was doing everything from the beginning." But in my opinion, those Ten Rings in Iron Man 1 were a legitimate terrorist group in the Middle East. They were not some puppeteered, made up thing. They were a legitimate terrorist organization. I'm thinking maybe there's two different Ten Rings. There's an actual Ten Rings like terrorist group that maybe actually has a Mandarin. Ben Kingsley's character, Trevor, the actor, did say, he had plastic surgery, which kind of hints at him being based off of something else. And also the fact that they made him do a certain voice as well as the Mandarin. So I'm just thinking that maybe there's more to it. Like they're kind of hinting at stuff that they can pick up for later. But at the same time, I kind of don't want them to do the Mandarin again now because I feel it would be really odd. But at the same time, I still want to see the comic book Mandarin because there's no excuse now. We've had Thor, Aliens, everything is out there pretty much. And also, we got AIM in this movie. Now, AIM was really interesting. I do like how they showed AIM to a degree, but one thing that confused me was how quickly the United States government went from using Hammer Industries to using AIM. And I was fine with that to a degree until I saw basically, AIM seems like they're more, I know they're a think tank group, but as a think tank group, they didn't really show they had like technology, like, weapon technology, pretty much. Like because I guess they take over War Machine, make him Iron Patriot for the government, things like that. All it really seems like they did was give him a paint job. They didn't actually seemingly, weaponize him anymore whatsoever. So I was kind of feeling like, why did they have to have such a great, input into it as if they were Hammer Industries? I would have rather preferred it going back to Stark Industries, really, because, it'd make more sense dealing with the Iron Man suits and also, weapons in general, technology. While it seemed like AIM was just focused on biotechnology, not really, technology as in guns, things like that. So I was kind of wondering about that. I felt that was kind of left open, really, to how much AIM actually, like, what they actually do, things they do, how much of it they do besides biotechnology, since this film only focused on the biotech and the extremists, and I'll get to that later. I did like the metaphorical value. This movie pretty much made the whole arc reactor and Tony's journey really come to a close, and I really did appreciate that. And basically, a big theme of this movie is demons in your past coming back to get you, and things you do in your past that, mistakes you've made that build up and culminate to one thing. So I really did like that. I liked how they did the one thing I was hoping they would do, which was, let Iron Man actually age out of being Iron Man and move on and start life with Pepper. Because while the movie does say at the end Tony Stark will return, it doesn't say Iron Man will return. So I'm thinking one thing they might do is they'll either have Rhodey take over, since Don Cheadle does have more movies still under contract with Marvel while Robert Downey Jr. doesn't. And that'd be a great way, because Robert Downey Jr., he could be the consultant guy still. Tony Stark can still, be the smart guy of the group. But you could have Rhodey be Iron Man, and that would actually be a really clever way, considering to also like reflect off the comics when they've done that. But also be really clever because Don Cheadle, it would be a waste of his contract if they don't use the next like 2 or 3 movies they have with him. I was kind of upset though that they really put an emphasis on the armors in this movie, but they didn't really showcase them. The only one they really showcased in particular was, besides the Mark 42, it was Igor's suit, or what a lot of people were considering their Hulkbuster armor. Now, and by they showcased it, I mean they only showed it doing the one thing it was supposed to do, which is heavy lifting. And I did like seeing that, but I was kind of hoping for some of the armors, like, example, Tony Stark made an armor based on the Destroyer suit from Thor. He also made an armor for, like, deep space, and he made an armor, like the Heartbreaker armor, which is made for, essentially, power. We didn't really get to see those showcase what makes them unique, and I was kind of upset about that, because I was hoping to see that. Like, you show all these armors, you are promoting all these armors, yet you're not going to show us all these armors and what they can do in particular. Like, I'm not saying, oh, Tony Stark's going through every one at a time, but I just mean during the fight scene, just kind of show what they could do. Like, every once in a while be like, hey, Let's say we have a deep sea armor. Why doesn't he bring someone like deep underwater to a pressure they can't handle? Or with deep space armor, bring him bring a villain up into space. Or we have the Heartbreaker armor. Let the Heartbreaker armor do a massive unibeam, like something that makes it seem unique. I didn't really get the feeling we didn't get that at all, and that kind of let me down a bit. And also, Rhodey let me down because Rhodey didn't really do anything. He was pretty much a sidelined character or a sidekick in general. And I was really sad about that because I was hoping the final fight would come down to the Mandarin and Iron Man, while Rhodey and the Iron Legion fought the Extremis soldiers. That's what I was hoping it would happen, but obviously that did not happen at all. And Rhodey didn't really play a part. In particular, the Iron Patriot didn't really play a part. He was just kind of there. And when he was there, Rhodey wasn't usually even the Iron Patriot. It was usually Savin or someone else, which was kind of upsetting to a degree because at the same time, a lot of people were looking forward, especially comic book fans, were looking forward to the first live action portrayal of Iron Patriot and what they were going to do with the character. So I was kind of hoping about that. I was also hoping when we had the Iron Legion, maybe Tony would be like, oh, I made your new War Machine armor. Also, they did name drop the Avengers a few times and talk about it. Aldrich Killian in particular talked about how everything's changed, especially since Thor came down. I was kind of wondering, why wasn't S.H.I.E.L.D. on? Like, they actually name drop S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, S.H.I.E.L.D. was looking into the Mandarin. But I'm like, if the Mandarin's attacking and there are these type of explosions going on, S.H.I.E.L.D. should have been on this. Like, Captain America should have been on this, or Black Widow, or Hawkeye, Nick Fury. All of them should have been on this. So I'm trying to figure out why it took them so long to get on it. And in particular, of all Iron Man movies not to have a S.H.I.E.L.D. presence, why this one? So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the Christmas setting. Now, while I didn't mind the flashback, and we got the song by Eiffel 65, I think it's Eiffel 65, Blue, which I thought the opening of the movie was pretty good. Like, I didn't mind, it was New Year's Eve, but I did kind of feel it was out of place to have the movie set during Christmas time. And the reason why is because it doesn't add anything at all. There wasn't a Christmas theme to the movie. There wasn't a Christmas feel to the movie. It was just kind of there to be there. And I felt as the opening summer blockbuster movie, it didn't make sense really. Like, if it was coming out in the place of what Thor the Dark World is, which is like November, that would be one thing because, that's kind of around Christmas time. But this movie just didn't need the Christmas theme, and it really didn't fit at all. So I thought it was kind of odd, and I felt like it was really out of place in a bunch of other things. And I saw it with someone, and she was like, yeah, it didn't really feel like it needed to be there. So that also goes into something else I felt like that didn't really need to be there, and that was the whole China aspect. Now, Mandarin, I'll be honest, a lot of things that I hold dear died because of the Mandarin, including fortune cookies. I love fortune cookies. I heard China was, supposed to have this big production aspect into Iron Man 3, and we really didn't get that. Like, they could have as easily as had Tony Stark go to Tennessee, he could have as easily gone to China. And all this stuff happened in China. But nope, doesn't happen at all. Nothing. Also, the kid in the movie, I didn't mind the kid, but I felt they could have made... he was there for comedic relief to a degree, which they didn't need in the first place, as Robert Downey Jr. was holding the comedic parts of the film by himself anyways. But that kid, it just, to a degree, he didn't really do anything, really, that I felt like... I was fine with him being in the movie, but I just felt like he didn't do anything that made him need to be in there. So it kind of, when I was watching it, yeah, I enjoyed seeing the kid, but at the same time, I was just like, oh. But there's that. Plot, I did enjoy the plot, I'm not going to lie. It was a very entertaining movie, nevertheless. I did enjoy watching it. I recommend any comic book fan watching it to watch it. The acting was phenomenal. Robert Downey Jr. and Ben Kingsley in particular really did a good job. Gwyneth Paltrow, she did a good job, but not as much effort I felt as Robert Downey Jr. put into it. Guy Pearce did a pretty good job as well. Also, the writing, I thought it was good, but too much comedy in the dialogue, like I said before. At times when it needed to be serious, it should have stayed serious, and instead they put comedy in it, and that really ruined the flow of the movie, in my opinion. So it was really hard for me to grade this movie. I wanted to give it a really high score, obviously, and it probably was due to me going in it with high expectations, but nevertheless, I'm giving this a 7.5. Second opinion, I would love to give it an 8, but it's just a few things I just cannot The thing with the too much comedy, how they sidelined Rhodey and the Iron Patriot, the way they handled Extremis was very different from the comics. And I don't mean that in a bad way. The whole reason people were really excited for Extremis was because Tony got it in comic books and allowed him to interact with technology, things like that. And they really changed Extremis around to a degree. And it didn't bother me, but it did kind of bother me how everyone besides Tony pretty much got Extremis. And it's like the one reason a lot of people wanted to watch this movie from a comic book fan perspective was to see Tony get Extremis and see how that works with him in technology, things like that. It's just everything in general culminating together. It's not a bad movie, it's a good movie. And that's why I'm giving it a 7.5 out of 10. This is Hybrid. Please subscribe, comment, and like, and I'll see you guys later.